Good Game, the show for gamers by gamers. I'm Hex.
And I'm Bajo. Hex, a massive task ahead of us. The sheer maths and science behind the calculations of how many
G-Force sees gun-toting guinea pigs battling deranged domestic appliances. We put in the hours and test out the co-op with the full version of Borderlands.
Pesky citizens get a new city courtesy of Good Game in Cities XL.
We play a Roffle Cup against one of Australia's most successful authors. He writes the literary equivalent of video games, and his name is Matthew Reilly.
But first, can you guess the game for this week?
And we want the full title on that.
Yeah, or there'll be trouble.
News type badge.
Good game.
Modern Warfare 2 is still causing mischief this week, but Amazon has now joined the fray, renouncing its neutrality and apparently siding with developer Infinity Ward. Fans, angry at the lack of dedicated servers, have been giving the game a 1-star rating on the site. This in itself is nothing unusual. The mass deletion of such ratings is though, and over 170 negative reviews have been purged, leading for calls to boycott not just the game, but Amazon too. Sitting on the other side of the fence is developer DICE. In a post titled Dedicated to Our PC Players, the developer lays out exactly what features PC gamers can expect from Battlefield 2 Bad Company, including dedicated servers and higher player counts. Left 4 Dead 2 might not have escaped the censor's ban hammer, but Borderlands did. Unfortunately, it seems nobody told the guys at Steam. Australian gamers who took a head start downloading the game noticed a file tagged as low violence, despite the game cruising through the classification process. 2K and Steam quickly corrected the mistake, and the full high violence version was made available for download. It seems the frustration with Borderlands continues in-game too, with reports across all 3 platforms of disappearing stats. A small number of players have experienced the glitch, which resets all their weapon and class skill points, as well as equipped artifacts, leaving them effectively stranded at higher levels. Gearbox is working on a fix, but has been unable to offer a timescale. Sometimes news surfaces in the most unlikely of places, and this time it's a game developer's resume that has tongues wagging. The resume, which has since been taken down, belonged to an animator that said he worked on GoldenEye 2010, an Activision release for the Wii, before joining Team Bondi in September 2009. This would imply a remake or reboot of the classic Rare game, although with the 23rd Bond film slated for release in 2010-2011, there is a chance it's nothing more than a working title for the next movie tie-in. Activision and Nintendo were unwilling to comment at this time.
Good game.
With all the fuss about MMOs recently, there's no surprise to find other genres jumping on the bandwagon. But while a massively multiplayer fishing simulator doesn't make much sense, a city builder certainly does.
Well, exactly. And city building games have always existed in kind of a vacuum, and I guess to me that's their biggest limitation. So 10,000 people working together to build an entire planet just makes sense, and that's where Cities XL comes in.
Being an old-school SimCity girl from way back, I decided to jump on the tutorials and give them a go. The advisors actually have some great ideas for budding developers.
Dump the plebs next to the toxic waste dumps because they're too poor to matter, and save those nice spots on the hills for the executive elites in the higher tax bracket, that kind of thing.
Seriously, Badge?
Well, I may be paraphrasing just a little. Unfortunately, the advisor is traitorous filth. The moment your city reaches any level of complexity, it just loses sync with what's going on. Often the warnings don't match what's happening in reality, and paying attention to them can really upset the delicate balance of your urban ecosystem.
Yeah, it did get pretty annoying. I found that I just stopped listening and kept an eye on the stats. There's no real penalty for ignoring the advisors.
And that's another problem I had. Once you reach an equilibrium in your city, it just looks after itself. Nothing ever goes wrong except at your own hand.
No random Bowser attacks, Badge?
No, nothing. No riots, no earthquakes, nothing to upset your sprawling urban sprawl. The biggest danger is upsetting a citizen or two with the tax rates.
So it's more like the Cayman Islands as opposed to the Caracas.
I don't know where either of those places are, but I think so. And you know what? I can forgive this general lack of excitement if the MMO side of things lived up to its promise.
Yeah, I mean, Planet Mode was supposed to be the big selling point on this game, but it's really been struggling since the launch. Fixes are ongoing and trading is still laggy, and it really struggles to keep itself together when you flick between screens.
Not only that, but contracts expire after 5 days, and that can be a real nightmare. I built a high-tech urban utopia and was hoping to flog off some of my excess gadgety goodness that my citizens couldn't absorb in the trade window, but it seems nobody wants to buy my surplus of PSP Go's.
Because the trade system is so confusing and broken?
No, I think it's just because making PCs and pharmaceuticals is sexy, whereas boiling coal just isn't. Seems like every city is a wannabe Silicon Valley.
I know what you mean, and sometimes in that situation, the only thing left for you to do is sell to the Cities XL trade bot at Omnicorp.
I hate that guy.
Yeah, I mean, he pays a fraction of the going rate, and sometimes he's the only one that'll buy your tokens. And his cut rate prices put a real strain on the economy.
It sure does, and it takes me back to my point about 5-day contracts. I always found myself trading a bunch of tokens all at once, so I'd have a few sales and purchases go live at once. It's a nice boost to income, but it means the whole lot do expire at once. So if you're not online or in-game when it happens, you really run the risk of bankruptcy.
Totally, and by the time your city is large enough to trade on that scale, you'll have emergency services and utilities to worry about. These are a really big drain on resources, and without contracts bringing in the money, as soon as those contracts expire, you'll be hemorrhaging money at a crazy rate.
The trading system isn't the only flaw. Initially, you'll only be given small avenues which can hold 60 cars per minute. Try convincing 500,000 people that that's an acceptable thoroughfare for a busy city. Unfortunately, the only way to upgrade your roads is to bulldoze them and then lay bigger ones down on the asphalt corpses.
Yeah, and then those new roads are too wide to fit on the grid-based network you've painstakingly created for your fledgling city.
Exactly. I know I said I like destroying things, but that's not really what I had in mind. It's stupid.
It's ironic this is billed as a next-gen city builder because it's actually a lot more fun and it's a lot less stressful than the old-school single-player mode.
Yeah, that's true, although I did find myself taking advantage of planet mode just to build extra cities and flog off my excess tokens.
Okay, but would you want to pay €8 a month for that privilege?
Heck no! Future patches promise extra content, but right now I'm just not sure if it's worth it.
I guess the gameplay expansion modules might help, but again, they're a little way down the track.
Those mini tycoon micromanagement doohickeys?
They're the ones.
Lipstick on a dead horse. I'm giving it 6 out of 10 rubber chickens.
I'm giving it a slightly healthier 7 rubber chickens and crossing my fingers that they're fixing things up in the near future.
Good game.
Matthew Reilly, welcome to Good Game. Thanks so much for joining us on the show.
Thank you for having me. It's going at it. It's going at it. Oh, it's going in. Yeah. Oh!
So close. That would have been awesome.
It was almost a hole in one.
Do you play many video games, Matthew?
You know, not so many video games these days, but in my misspent youth, yes, I did. And I come from a time of ColecoVision and Amiga video games,
Okay.
which is, you know, the dark ages. But I used to play a lot of car games.
Awesome.
And I used to play an old golf game as well. I've got a bit of
wow.
draw on it.
Oh, wow.
Oh, it's going to go down that hill. Oh. Out of bounds. Oh, Tiger.
So your latest book, Matthew, The 5 Greatest Warriors, it's non-stop action. It's really the literary version of a video game, wouldn't you say?
My books have often been said to be sort of literary versions of video games. They sort of have escalating scenes of action which often look like the levels of a video game. And pretty much everything blows up and people get shot.
So where do you get all your great ideas from?
You know, I read a lot of non-fiction, and, you know, for every maybe 12 books of non-fiction that I read, I get one really good idea. So a couple of years ago, I was reading a book on Egypt, and I read about the Great Pyramid at Giza, and it once had a golden capstone, which sat at the top of the pyramid, which is now no longer there. That's a fantastic idea. I thought, why has nobody written a story about somebody hunting for the capstone for the Great Pyramid? Oh. She's a boiling cauldron of rage. I don't think there are code violations in golf. You technically could snap your club, but then you can't use it again, and you can't replace it.
So Matthew, if a developer approached you, would you be interested in writing for a video game?
You know, I think I would. I'm someone who thinks that different stories suit different media. So I've written screenplays for television, and I've written screenplays for feature films, and I also write these big fat novels. Certain stories I think would work perfectly as a video game, so if a developer did come knocking and I felt the story suited the video game environment, I'd love to do it.
It's in the sand.
That bunker in real life is as deep as any bunker I've ever seen.
Wow.
If you can get out of this, you're doing well. Golfers have died in that bunker, gone in and never come out again. I need to catch up 5 shots on the last hole. My 11 didn't help.
All right, one more hole to go.
One more is what it all comes down to.
Matthew, your books have been credited with reigniting readers' love of reading. Seeing that this is a video game show, what would you say to our viewers who maybe want to pick up a video game controller over a book?
You know, I'm quite a fan of video games because I think video games teach younger people how to absorb information very, very quickly. But the joy of a book is that it's your brain doing the creating. With a video game, somebody is doing the thinking for you in terms of the creation of the environment. Whereas when you're reading a book, you're the director, you're the game creator. So I think if you are thinking of playing too many video games, go and read a book because then you are actually activating your mind.
Do video game manuals count as... because there's manuals on how to play the games?
No.
I'll be quiet.
No.
Did we draw?
You drew!
I recouped it.
Oh, that was awesome. Okay, well, Matthew, thank you so much for joining us on the show today. I believe we've had a draw.
We have.
You'll have to come back and play another game with us.
I will.
See
I
if you
accept
can
that challenge.
Claim a victory.
Good game.
The Ballad of Gay Tony is the second episode in GTA 4. In this episode, you play as Luis, Gay Tony's 2IC, and as well as being a merciless killer and a demolitions expert, you also need to know how to dance.
Grand Theft Auto 4, how I've missed thee. Within minutes you start reminiscing about all the things that made Grand Theft Auto 4 great. You know, the epic battles, the looks of contempt characters give you as you're passed out on the stairs, beating up Tai Chi noobs in the park.
And then you start to notice all the things that really start to get old, like the progressively juvenile writing,
Oy vey, mother...
the long drives through traffic and tolls, and the incessant swearing.
Yeah, but that, you know, it's GTA 4. You take the good with the bad because the good is usually pretty good.
Yeah, but I'm getting so bored with the city now. I mean, maybe it's just because I've spent so much time in that city driving around that it's all starting to get a bit samey to me. And when it comes to the story, I just didn't feel like paying attention. I just wanted to get to the action and start hassling choppers with my automatic explosive shotgun.
Yeah, the cutscenes are getting a bit flabby, and that in-car dialogue.
You know, I feel bad for you, El. Why? Because we could both end up dead or in jail in the next few minutes? No, because you want to be something you ain't.
Oh, just shut up. I'm trying to avoid ramming up the back of cop cars.
Did you try driving them into the ocean?
Whatever you say, bro. But what are you talking about? I was saying that I may be interested in investing in your potential.
There's no stopping them. There's lots of new weapons and vehicles, nitro races, base jumping. You can also work as a bouncer in Gay Tony's club if you like wandering between cutscene and cutscene. It's really dull. Great idea, but poorly implemented.
I don't want to see you again.
I really enjoyed the single-player campaign. I mean, it was really packed with action. But the best part about Lost and Damned was the multiplayer. How did you find it this time?
Oh, well, the forum goers and I had a massive session on Saturday, and you know, it's really just an extra couple of weapons and parachutes, but you always make your own fun in Grand Theft Auto 4 multiplayer, and we certainly did. Nico Bellic's story in Grand Theft Auto 4 wasn't really a rags to riches, more a rags to tracksuit one than anything else. And here you're already living the high life. It's all about glitz and glamour and explosions and gratifying gunplay, and that's what I like about Grand Theft Auto, so I'm giving it 8.5.
Gorgeous, huh? Like condensed money.
The odd mission crossover was a nice touch, and if you missed the last episode or don't have GTA 4, then the standalone version is a great option. I'm giving it an 8.
Good game.
Hi, I'm Aristotle. Because I'm a philosopher, a lot of people ask me, how do I become a better person? The answer's simple. You just need to kill things. Killing things makes you stronger, smarter, and more attractive. That's why people who work at abattoirs are so sexy. And Gandhi is just a weird little gnome.
It's time to take a look at just what it's like being a hardcore counter-terrorist covert operative in a world where technology fights back. This is G-Force.
You're also a guinea pig.
Hold on. I think I'm about to experience a really close shave.
Based on the animated Disney film, you play as Darwin, voiced by Sam Rockwell, and his sidekick recon associate Mooch. The game starts just after they break out of a pet store and just in time to see the world go crazy as toasters, alarm clocks and coffee machines turn on their owners.
My lamp's alive!
This game really surprised us. Under the cartoony surface, it takes heavy design cues from games like Ratchet & Clank and even Gears of War. Developer Eurocom have a huge movie game and ports resume, and they're also responsible for Beijing Olympics 2008, which hurts my soul in a very strange way. But you got to give them credit here because this game treats their younger audience with respect, and it's also helped by all the guinea pig combat roles.
Yeah, I mean, you can pretty much count on one hand the number of games there are that parents can play with their kids and still have a good time, but this is one of them.
It's got the same sort of controls as most third-person shooters, like double zooming when aiming, for example. So you can look at this as kindy for the future hardcore.
Powers. Each enemy is introduced in a slow-motion leap, and the character design is excellent.
Alarm clocks act like priests, and toasters will pull you in for a close combat crush. And there's also tougher enemies, such as the Shredder, which require more creative ways for you to take them down.
Bosses and mini-bosses have shields or weak spots, and they're really fun to fight for the most part. I especially like the shielded PC, which spawns mini spider-like CPU fans to come after you.
Yeah, and it's really fun when they start mixing up the enemies on top of platforming puzzles. It forces you to prioritise which particular part of that particular enemy puzzle has the most threat.
The puzzles are quite good too, and you'll often need to use Mooch to activate switches or perform some other function that allows you to access a new area. There's lots of obstacles and closing doors in between to stress you out. There's also light reflection puzzles and lots of standard platforming. A nice touch and good example of this is the conveyor belt, which builds a washing machine around you.
Middle of a washing machine.
This game also comes with 3D glasses. They're the cheap blue and red ones though, so the experience is interesting, but you probably will try it once and then not bother again.
My only real complaint is that there's a lot of aliens in crates or sandwich makers in crates. It really suffers heavily from Quake syndrome, and after about hour 3 you start to realise they're only there just to lengthen the game, and it really made me want to put the controller down, which would have been a shame because later on in the game all the puzzles and enemies really build on each other in a clever way. I'm giving it 7 out of 10 rubber chickens.
For a game about guinea pig counter-terrorists, it's pretty good and quite unique as well. I'm giving it a 7.
Good game.
Sometimes we need a break from real life to play games that simulate the things that we could be doing in real life. I think that makes sense.
I'm with you, Hex. We're talking about the nerdy appeal of the simulator, but let's not get confused with casual simulation games like Cities XL, SimCity or Theme Park, because the simulator is the more hardcore end of the spectrum.
Right, flight simulators, for example.
They're a little too obvious for us, Hex. I want to know what the hell they were thinking when they came up with this. Crane Simulator 2009, a simulation of the thrilling pursuit of manoeuvring massive machinery to lift rather large objects. Playing from a first and third-person perspective, your job is to lift and shift stuff into position within a tension-building time limit. Hours of white-knuckled pleasure.
Yes, but of course, not all simulators have to be as strange as that piece of shovelware. Space Shuttle, A Journey into Space, took us on a rocket ride into orbit, which was a surprisingly technical simulation for the old Atari 2600 and its faux wood paneling. The player had to pilot the Space Shuttle through launch, dock with satellites, and then successfully return to Earth without running out of precious fuel.
I'm not sure if carefully nudging the X-axis trajectories to make a few white pixels move across the screen really captures what it'd be like to have 1,000 tons of fuel igniting under your ass.
The Aussie-developed Train Simulator series from Orin Interactive has been puffing along now for about 8 years, giving gamers a taste of life on the tracks. Objectives include the safe transportation of cargo or passengers and getting to grips with all the levers and buttons that control the trains.
Designing and building your own maps and railroads does hold some appeal for anyone who grew up with the model train sets, but you'd still have to call this one a niche title, I think.
Well, instead of inhaling plumes of smoke from a steam engine, how about the salty sting of wind-whipped polygons?
I love a bit of wind-whipped polygon action.
Virtual Skipper has gone from single-player simulation to full online regattas between budding boat captains all over the globe. Realistic water conditions based on weather and water currents make this more than just simple spinnaker management.
Landlubbers probably wouldn't understand the appeal of battling the elements to haul your hull over the finish line, would they, Hex? I think a crossover with Jaws Unleashed could have helped.
Finally, let's take a look at what might be one of the most hardcore simulators around. Commander-in-Chief is a geopolitical simulator for the PC that hands you the control of an entire country, from its economic management and military considerations to ecological problems and other more microscopic social issues.
Missions with exciting titles like 2009, A Big Recession, give you an idea of the enormity of the problems you have to face as the leader of your country. Simply remaining in power is a challenge, let alone actually getting anything meaningful done, which is pretty realistic, I guess. As far as games go, though, I think that's the closest you'll come to a 9-to-5 job, Hex.
Well, the simulator is a pretty demanding genre, no matter whether you're piloting a 747 through crosswinds or moving a monster crane.
Monster cranes are cool, though. Yeah.
Good game. All right, Baghdad, time to wake up. It's a beautiful day, full of opportunity.
A few weeks ago, we had a preview of Borderlands, and now the full game has arrived, so we've been thumping skags all week. And not much is really different from the preview, except that we were able to test out the co-op a lot more, and that works pretty well.
In case you missed it, Borderlands is a 4-player FPS RPG with 4 classes, stacks of weapons, and mods for your gear and special ability. Rumours of a vault that opens every 200 years have led you to seek out and unlock this fabled treasure, usually with violence.
The gunplay in general is pretty good, and really focusing on weak spots and aiming for those headshots is completely essential. The story's a bit crap, though, and it takes a long time to unfold, and then it's not really worth it in the end.
You should be able to get into the mine now. There's nothing between you and Sledge, and we're one step closer to the vault. I believe.
After a while, you start to wonder why you're doing all these samey quests on this planet. I mean, they're a bit MMO-like.
Yeah, it's a bit like collect 10 of these, run over 50 of them, find this power generator, build this ridiculous sniper rifle with incorrect compass markings. You know, you keep waiting for the quest to get better, but they don't. The boss fights and more unique missions are hours and hours apart, so you're really going to need to rest on the game's unique visuals and gear collecting to get you through to the next level. This game is a giant supermarket of loot scraps, which requires a lot of sifting to find the gold. And with even lower level characters dropping gear worth equipping, you'll spend a lot of time looking down and pressing and holding X.
Comparing gear is good, and it's a lot of fun building up your tech tree in tandem with the drops you find with your mods and the different weapons. Once you hit level 26, which is about 13 hours in, the gear generally starts to get a lot more interesting.
Co-op works great if one of the lower level characters is hosting the round, because then everyone can just progress through the story without leaving some noob behind. And it's a nice touch that the quest indicators pop up for everyone, even if you've done the quest earlier on.
Yeah, that was really good. In fact, there's quite a few things here to make co-op very easy. Cash and XP level out at a normal pace. We started with a level 1, a level 4, and a level 8, and we all hit level 11 about the same time.
Bigger and better.
Yeah, but Badge, the way the game is designed, it makes it more fun to play with levels that are closer to each other, because if you've got a high-level character, then the enemies all get more HP. It's not like helping out a mate grind in WoW, for example.
I would have liked more information about how all the abilities stack and if that's actually affecting your weapon damage in total, you know, an average. And there wasn't really that in there. You just end up experimenting and going for the weapon that is the most fun.
Nailed it.
Yeah, it can be hard to work out which weapon you want to use, and I found that sticking with a fire elemental just worked for me on almost everything. I hate to mention this word though, Badge. Skags.
Ah, they're the bane of my virtual existence. There's 9 hours of skag grinding in this game before you reach any new enemies. There's even a skag boss, and guess what his name is? Skagzilla. Yet, Hex, despite all this, I'm in two minds about it because I still really enjoyed the game.
Oh, really?
Well, there's a lot of stuff I really hate here, like the awkward vehicle controls,
Swap with me. We won't survive with you there.
the repetitive missions and enemies, the Skagfest, the terrible map and compass system. But the gear collection and all the co-op shenanigans was really fun, and that was enough for me to stay in the game. So I'm giving it 8 out of 10 rubber chickens.
I hear what you're saying, and it is kind of cool when everyone busts out their special ability at once. You do end up feeling like you've done these quests before, though. It's just that this time you've got a gun instead of a sword and a shield. So maybe Borderlands for some, but not for everyone. I'm giving it 7.5.
Don't worry about saying goodbye. I'm sure we'll be doing this all again soon enough. Get off my bus.
Good game.
So, did you guess the game for this week?
A lot of you probably answered Half-Life, and a lot of you now need to drink from your nearest noob cup because it was actually Half-Life Blueshift.
Developed by Borderlands dev Gearbox Software, Blueshift was their second expansion to the original Half-Life, which put you in the shoes of everyone's favourite Black Mesa security guard, Barney.
So what's up next week?
We'll be testing the latest in plastic gaming peripherals and the game that drives it with DJ Hero.
We also delve into BioWare's latest epic fantasy game, Dragon Age Origins.
Name's Ogren.
Plus, games that make you go spew. Literally, we look at motion sickness and how and why it affects some gamers.
Hop on the forums to join in the good game discussion. Join our Facebook and Twitter, and don't forget to check the site for all the stuff we couldn't fit into the show.
Until next week, gamers, Bajo out.
Hex out.